Welcome to DABCC Radio,
where smart people listen.
Virtualization and Cloud Talk,
Featuring cutting-edge solutions from the hottest companies around the globe.
broadcasting from the DABCC offices in sunny Sarasota, Florida.
Surrounded by computers, books, and Legos.
A Microsoft MVP, Citrix Charter CTP, VMware vExpert.
And your host, Douglas Brown.
Hello and welcome to DABCC Radio. I'm Doug Brown and I'm really excited. Today we have IGEL CTO on the line to dive deep into what's going on over here at IGEL. And I'm really excited about this because we have Matthias Haas, and Matthias is just a brilliant man and can explain things in just the best of ways. So I'm really excited to just go through the product line, go through all my questions that I asked or am asking, and share them with you. So with no further ado, we'll bring you up to speed on exactly what's going on over technically at IGEL Technologies. And with me, Doug Brown and Matthias Haas from IGEL.
Okay, Matthias, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. I'm quite looking forward to this conversation. You know, we had Jed on just a couple weeks ago, and now we're bringing on and we're going to talk to the guy, right? We're going to get technical. So thank you so much for doing this, and let's dive into it. For my first question, as always, who are you? And of course, what do you do over at IGEL too?
Sure, Doug. So, my name is Matthias Haas. I'm the CTO at IGEL. I have, I would say, a fairly technical background from where I'm coming from. So I started at IGEL around 10 years ago as a software developer on the Linux team. So I have, I would say, a fairly kind of groundwork view on what we are doing within IGEL. I started working for the IT industry around 2001. I was working for a company that did internet security appliances at that time. So I did a lot of kernel work on Linux, security stuff, working on firewalling, and all of these things that were relevant at that time. I would say that they are still relevant today, but from a different angle. And when I started at IGEL, I was really working on also the kernel stuff within our IGEL OS at that time, working with our Linux and integrating a lot of like driver sets. Working on those different VDI implementations or server-based computing stuff that we did at that time for Citrix, for Microsoft, and all the other guys that we have out there. And after a couple of years, I got the opportunity to change my focus a little bit away from really doing the coding stuff, which basically I still would like to do today, but I don't have the time anymore. So I had to step back and get a more like high-level view on things that are going on. The good thing is, with all the technical knowledge that I still have, it's good to see whether things make sense in our products or not. So this really helps me a lot to understand on how we can improve our product and get things working. So at that time, like 2009, I think, I changed from the R&D team towards product marketing. Then I had the opportunity a couple of years later to take over the responsibility for the product management and marketing team. And since beginning of this year, I changed my role completely. I am now responsible as a CTO for the product management, product marketing, as well as the technical documentation team, working on all the things that are related to our products, the product strategy, and where the vision where we want to go with IGEL in the next couple of years. So I think that's a pretty fair story. An interesting thing also, that's now the fun part of it. I have a little daughter since 10 months roundabout now, and she keeps me busy as well as IGEL does. So that's currently the challenges that I have to face, having not much sleep and doing a lot of things for IGEL, getting things forward.
That's great, Matthias. That's great. I don't know what's cooler, the little daughter or the what you do, technically, right? I think they're probably equally as cool, but I'm just like you. I wish I started off as a programmer, and I wish I had more time to write code. It's my favorite thing to do, but it's not my job, and it's far from what I'm supposed to be doing in any given moment. But it's one of my favorite
exactly.
things to do.
Right. So you have to keep yourself away from getting too deep into technology there.
Yeah, that's exactly what you get sucked in, right? And
Exactly.
you're so happy doing it. It's what you want to do, and it definitely sucks you in. But so that being said, real quick, can you tell us about IGEL, and maybe you can give us the technical side of IGEL versus more the sales-ish marketing side.
Right. Sure. So as I told you, I have I would say a pretty long history with IGEL, and IGEL is coming from a traditional thin client company selling our hardware devices to customers looking at that time for server-based computing solutions and the upcoming VDI stuff. And in the end, as we have that long history, so by the way, IGEL, I think, was founded in 1989. And as it is today, it was founded in 2001 again. We have a very long history also with Citrix and all the other guys in that space coming from that green terminal stuff, where we had the first Linux-based terminal that was able to connect to those mainframes at that time. And doing all this history stuff, I think we have a really pretty good experience of what's going on in this market. And doing this for a long time, we realized at one stage that the core piece that we are doing is the management. So this means that with our UMS, our management tool, this is really the core value that we can provide to our customers. And as we are going through the years, we realized that the UMS is a very powerful tool to manage any types of endpoint devices. And we started doing selling our software. Also, I think somewhere in 2009, which was, I wouldn't call it by accident, but we had a customer that was looking for how to reuse his existing hardware that he has already deployed in his infrastructure without buying any additional new hardware to benefit from this central management, no-touch deployment stuff. And at that time, we saw the power of having a software stack, thin client type of solution that we still use today, now in the third generation with the UDC3. At that time when we started, was a hell of a work getting all this Linux stuff stable, getting it working on very different hardware platforms, having to cope with very different hardware layouts, drivers. So at that time, we thought, hey, this is going to be a hell of a work. So today, we are in a position where we have a very flexible and reliable endpoint OS that is completely manageable with our UMS. And by simply using the UMS to manage our own hardware, to manage the software piece, the software stack that is available for any third-party hardware, or even now with the new UD Pocket that we have introduced this year. We have a very flexible solution. And the good thing about that is, and that was what makes me happy because it makes our lives easier and customers' lives easier, it all is based on the same software stack. So we are easily able to standardize the endpoint devices and provide a management capability that is very flexible, that can manage all of the devices that customers would like to deploy. So I think that's the technical background kind of on a high level, using a standardized software stack, the IGEL OS, as for our endpoint devices based on Linux with a very small footprint, very versatile, secured, locked down. We have full control of what we are doing there together with our central management tool. And I can remember the time when we were talking about Linux, thin clients. Everyone said, hey, I have no idea how to manage Linux. I have no idea how to use the command line pieces, how to configure that, and how to get things done on a Linux space. Because I have no experience with Linux. I just know those hackers that are sitting all out there. And our response was always, hey, you do not have to really fiddle around with all the Linux stuff. This is all covered in our UMS. So the good thing is, end of the story, people are not talking about whether they want to use Linux or not today. They just see the capabilities that we have out there and the abstraction layer that we can provide towards the IGEL OS. In terms of managing those devices and not having the need to really have those hackers that can handle all the Linux stuff out there.
You got it. You got it. No, you mentioned UDC and IGEL OS, and I think one thing we got to be careful with is acronyms, because what does UDC mean, right? So a lot of guys out there, UDC, what's this? So can you describe it? And this is really the basis of the IGEL, the genius behind IGEL, right? Well, UMS sure is the Universal Management System. Can you describe what UDC is and a little bit more about IGEL OS for us?
Sure. So, as I told you, we have this unified firmware concept. So we are using the same software stack for all the different products that we have based on Linux. And in the end, this is what we call the IGEL OS. So that's the software, the OS, providing also all the clients that you need to access virtualized environment, cloud environments, or even terminal emulations still required today. So that's the software piece. And then we have those different products that are based on the IGEL OS. One is our hardware, so the universal desktop devices, the IGEL Zero devices. And then we have introduced, as I told you briefly before, the UDC in 2009. That's the Universal Desktop Converter. So that's the pure software stack that you can deploy on any third-party hardware, no matter whether it's a thin client, a laptop. And as I said already, we have spent tons and tons of resources and time to get this software stack as flexible and versatile as possible, so that even today we can run on very different form factors. And then as the last piece, that's the UD Pocket. That's our software, the IGEL OS software pre-deployed on a USB stick. And with that piece, you even do not have to install any software on third-party devices. You just plug in the USB stick and boot from that as a kind of a live stick. And that's why as it is so small, we call that UD Pocket.
Cool. We'll get to UD Pocket in a little bit. The Linux OS. Can you talk a bit about the Linux? Is this our Linux or IGEL Linux? Is this what version of Linux? Things of that nature. What are the system requirements? Things of that nature.
Right. So that's a very good question. As you know, there are very different flavors of Linux out there. We have chosen to go with kind of a Ubuntu-based system, as Ubuntu is already very well known and made for desktop environments. But we didn't like how Ubuntu is structured. But we are just picking those parts of Ubuntu that are really required to fulfill the requirements in a virtualized world. So from that point of view, it is a smaller footprint. We just need a maximum of 1 gigabyte of SSD space. We have our own file system that we call the IGEL file system, the IGEL partitioning. And this is a way on how we can componentize the different features that we have implemented there. The whole system is also changed from a read-write-able system to a read-only system. So there is only a very small piece where we can store data, and the rest of the system, while being booted, is read-only. This means as soon as you reboot the device, it's all reset to the original configuration. And when it boots again, it based on the configuration it received, it reconfigures itself again to what you want it to be. So that's the one thing. On the other hand, what we are also integrating is our management capabilities. So a standard Ubuntu system, or Linux system in general, is not easy to manage. So we are putting our management capabilities in there to enable our customers to really benefit from all of the features that we have pre-implemented, starting from the clients that are in there, like Citrix, VMware, or Microsoft, up to peripheral support, smart cards, smart card stacks, digital dictation, whatever you can think of what is necessary to successfully deploy an endpoint OS to have the same user experience as you would have with a fat client. So I think in the end, what is the core of what we are doing with IGEL OS is creating an ecosystem, an OS that can be used from our technology partners, and we are adding in the glue between those different components to A, manage them, and B, to have them stable and available for customers through all the firmware updates that we provide.
You bet, you bet. And I think as great as the IGEL OS is, really the secret sauce is this management solution that you've referred to multiple times that we call the UMS. Can you give us the overview and the deep dive of the UMS itself?
Yes. So the UMS, as you said, that's our central management piece. The UMS is a management software that is able to manage all the different form factors and devices that we support with our IGEL OS, that we support with our universal management agent for Windows. So it's a way on how you can abstract configuration and management of endpoint devices in the IGEL space. As I told you already before, it is a graphical-driven tool that enables you not to have to fiddle around with those details of every OS or every system that we are supporting. It's an abstracted way. So if you want to have a Citrix configuration, you just create a configuration set or a profile that enables the Citrix piece in our software. It adds capabilities to manage the devices in terms of what is available on the system. In the end, everything is based on so-called profiles. So profiles are small configuration pieces, and we have a so-called management tree. It's similar to what you know from Active Directory, kind of. So where you have the devices, you have the configuration pieces. And in that management tree, you can apply those small little profiles to every single node, either directly to the thin client or to a node in that tree. And in the end, then through that, you can create a kind of a policy based on those different profiles that apply through the way from the root of the management tree to the endpoint, to the endpoint device or thin client, if you want. And that enables you to easily manage thousands of devices, because if you want to change something in your configuration, you're not doing that on every single endpoint device, but you change just a profile, and depending on the location in the management tree, it deploys or changes the configurations of thousands or devices in that management tree. And this really gives you the flexibility and capability to handle those devices with just a very small footprint of resources that you need to spend on the admin stuff.
Very cool, very cool. Can you give us some examples of configurations we can make?
Yeah, so for instance, as I told you, the typical clients, we can configure Citrix receiver to the full extent of features available. So all the HDX stuff, for instance, if you're talking about the real-time media engine for Skype for Business, all of this is already deployed on our endpoint device. And it's just a simple click in such a profile to enable that feature. And it's going to be sent out to the device. So it's not really transferring additional software to the endpoint devices. It's just a configuration piece where the endpoint device itself takes over the responsibility to set up the configuration correctly. VMware, for instance, we also have in place, we have our own implementation of Microsoft RDP client for that also provides remote FX capabilities. We have a whole bunch of different other clients enabling you to access very different environments. Browser, for instance, so we have a Firefox browser implemented. You can even configure the browser to be in a full kiosk mode environment, so you have no way to break out of that browser session, for instance. And all of this can be configured remotely with the UMS through our profiles, for instance.
Very cool, very cool. And you did mention Skype for Business, and I know IGEL's doing some neat stuff around things like Skype for Business and Cisco's solution, also conferencing type of solution. Can you describe some of the interesting stuff you're doing around protocols and just to give better user experience outside of the traditional, client server type of deal?
Sure. So I think what we are all talking about is unified communication today. This does not only include audio communication, but also video conferencing and communication. And as we have all learned through the years, it's not a good idea to all do this on the server side, because you have a lot of traffic involved. The scaling of the server infrastructure is very complicated. So what happened is that a lot of these things are offloaded to the endpoint devices, and as this often is very an intense operation for the endpoint devices, we have created a system that abstracts the hardware acceleration capabilities of those endpoint devices, so that you can use these acceleration capabilities for H.264, for instance, also for video conferencing, for instance. So the encoding and decoding stuff is offloaded from the CPU. So even with a small form factor or an older PC laptop, you can achieve a pretty decent user experience while doing unified communication. And so we spend a lot of time in our Linux team to really make this solution as stable as possible and to have a transparent acceleration capability. This enables us, for instance, with the current UDC3, that any device out there that either has an Intel, AMD, or NVIDIA chipset on the graphics card and that provides H.264 acceleration capabilities, that we can use that capability to accelerate the user experience while encoding and decoding the stuff locally on our devices.
Interesting. And what about graphics support? 4K, 5K monitors. Is there limitations on how many monitors you can have? Can you give us some of the your knowledge on that? What the reality is? A lot of people talk about things that just aren't necessarily true. Maybe you can give us a reality check in the process.
Sure. So as you said, so 5K. I don't know whether this is already real in a lot of deployments, but I think that the 4K requirement comes up pretty quickly, and for that, it's really absolutely necessary that you have the capability to offload decoding of any types of these protocols from the CPU to those acceleration pieces in the hardware. If not, you're stuck with a slow performing device. You might be able to attach 4K displays to that, but it's always a question of the system performance of that specific device. So if you're not able to offload, having a 4K screen or even two 4K screens attached, you will end up in a slow performing device, because all of the protocol data, the larger the screen gets, the more data needs to be transferred while working in that virtual environment, right? So doing this acceleration piece is really absolutely necessary to benefit from a VDI infrastructure and to have a good user experience from that. So what I see, for instance, for the future is that we will see a shift even from H.264 away, because this is limited somehow on in terms of the bandwidth usage in the protocols. So driving multiple 4K screens, it will be a challenge with H.264. So we will see, in my point of view, other protocols or codecs coming up, whether it's H265 or HEVC, as you would call it, or any other type of protocol. So we have a close eye on that so that we are able to really provide this acceleration capabilities in our own hardware, but also on third-party hardware pieces that do provide these acceleration capabilities. With our own solution right now with the UDC, for instance, we do support third-party graphics cards that can run up to 8 screens with 4K. So this is something that is good if you have a lot of static content, but at the moment, if you really want to have 8 screens 4K run on running with the existing protocols, this will be a big challenge, right?
Absolutely. Back to the UMS, the management solution. Scalability. Can we talk a bit about scalability? Multi-site, things of that nature.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So our UMS is made of multiple kind of modules. So the standard UMS is good for a single node deployment, but we have also added capabilities to have high availability capabilities in the UMS. This means you can add additional nodes to that single UMS that you might start with if you have a small deployment, and if your deployment grows in terms of managing additional endpoints through the UMS, you can add simply in this HA capability, and through that you can add additional UMS nodes to grow with your deployment. So there is no need to start with an HA environment from the beginning. What we have created is really a kind of management tool that grows with your deployment. And this enables you to always have the right fit solution in sizing and in capability towards the number of seats you want to manage with that. Not only having HA capabilities, but we also have the capability to use different databases in the background that also matched what you have in your environment. So we can start with our own embedded database that is easy to handle and that works pretty well, also in larger environments. But you can also get to the point where you would need to have a full-blown Microsoft SQL server stack, multi-site databases in different data centers. All of this is feasible with the UMS, as we can simply switch the deployment from that embedded database to those larger scale and enterprise-ready databases. So in the end, the UMS is capable to manage from a small number of seats, like 5, 10 devices, up to thousands of different seats, and it grows with your demands.
That's great. What about types of devices we can manage through the IGEL, UMS? It's not just the IGEL OS, of course. Can you talk about the different types of devices?
Sure. So I already talked a lot about the IGEL OS. I also briefly mentioned the unified management agent. That's an additional agent that you can deploy on any Windows 7 or Windows 10 device. So this also provides the same management capabilities and the same management philosophy on managing Windows-based devices. We also do have our own Windows Embedded Standard 7 devices available on our own hardware. We are coming up in May with Windows 10 IoT-based solution that also uses the same management tool. And we will also come up with a new version of Yuma that then also adds capabilities to manage any Windows 10 IoT-based device out there in the market. And that's, I think, one of the core philosophies that we follow with our management tool. As I said, we have an abstraction layer in there. So in the end, we do not care on whether the device is a Linux-based, so IGEL OS device, or whether it's Windows-based. You can use the same profile and configuration pieces for those different OSs that we support in our management infrastructure. The UMS in the end enables you to really have full control over the endpoints that you can manage with our agents, and it's completely transparent to the admin staff on whether they apply the configuration to the IGEL OS or whether they apply the configuration to any Windows-based device. And that's really the cool thing. It's not an island solution that is tailored around one single OS. It's a versatile and flexible solution that enables you to manage any type of endpoint device that is available in the IGEL world. And our goal for the future, and that's where we are heading in the next couple of years, is to really achieve a unified endpoint management solution with the UMS. We have already finished a lot of groundwork, but I think there are also a lot of things to come in the future.
Well, we'll definitely talk about the future here in a little bit, but let's keep going down the stack, so to speak. Recently, IGEL, and you had mentioned this earlier, you talked about the UD Pocket, the world's smallest thin client. I actually have one sitting here right next to me, and I love this little guy. It's about the size of it's actually smaller than my thumbnail, which just means I have a big giant thumb. But can you talk a bit about the UD Pocket? What's the goal here? Things of that nature. Maybe give some success stories along the way if you want to.
Sure. So there's a really funny story about the UD Pocket. So when we started to really create and plan the product, we were talking to a lot of people out there, and everyone said, "Hey, I like that." But I also got the feedback from a lot of people, "Hey, what's it all about? For what do I need that? Why do I want to have the IGEL OS put on a USB stick? What's the benefit around that?" And the funny thing is, when we started the product beginning of this year, all of a sudden everyone was excited about that. So they were coming up with even additional use cases that we had never thought about, and it is and was a big success for IGEL because it addresses a couple of things that are very obvious if you really think about that. So one good example was a big customer in the US. They have a lot of endpoint devices or PCs, laptops already out there in the field, distributed over the whole country. And so in the past, with our UDC only solution, it would have been required that you send this PC to some admin staff so that they can deploy the UDC software on that. And with that specific customer, when he saw the UD Pocket, he thought, "Hey, great. So the only thing that I now need to do to really get everyone on board with that cool solution is getting a UD Pocket that's small, as you said, that thumbnail size USB stick, send it out to my end users, tell them how to enable USB boot, and then you fire up the UD Pocket, and there you go, you're in a managed environment." So getting away from sending around big packages with PCs or laptops included, sending them back and forward again, you just send out one small little USB stick that you hand out to your end users, and there you go with a managed endpoint infrastructure. So the idea, and that was also one of the things that we were considering from the beginning, is that you can use your personal thin client, if you will, wherever you are. So it's that small USB stick that you can carry around with you very easily. And no matter where you are, you can just plug in that USB stick, fire up that device that you have on hand, and connect to your enterprise infrastructure. Another thing was the idea that you, with this BYOD that we see all over the world, typically you always have to work on how do I make sure that the environment, so this private use device, is secure enough to connect to my company network, and it fulfills the policies that I want them to fulfill. Think about virus scanners, think about firewall settings and all of this stuff. So now with the UD Pocket, you can still use your private device. You can do BYOD, but in a much more smarter way, because you separate the private use OS, whether it's your Windows device. Even today, we now have support for Mac. So whether you have Mac OS, you can completely separate that from your work environment. So if you want to work with that device, just plug in the UD Pocket, fire up IGEL OS, and connect in a secure and completely managed way to your enterprise environment without conflicting with your local setup of your private data. So there is no conflict anymore. You can easily upgrade your UD Pocket through our firmware upgrade process. You can simply make sure that if someone connects to your company infrastructure or your enterprise infrastructure, they are all using the same version of Citrix receiver. Everyone has the same configuration in place, and it's easy to manage and deploy additional devices that you want to bring into your company network. So from that point of view, this is a real easy and quick way and convenient way on how you can enable your users, even if they are completely away from the company network or from the campus network, to access your infrastructure easily in a secure way.
You bet, you bet. And we'll talk about the cloud gateway here in a second that just works hand in hand with this thing like magic. But are there any limitations to a form factor this small?
So I wouldn't call it limitation. I would call that requirements. But this is, I would say, the requirements are pretty low. So today, as I said, we are able to boot from any device that is based on x86 on a 64-bit version. So I would say that most of the devices that we see today in that space are already 64-bit capable. And our requirements are pretty low also in terms of storage and memory. So we just require 2 gigs of storage that you have already on hand in your UD Pocket. And we need 2 gigabytes of memory, which I would say every PC laptop that exists today easily can fulfill. And the cool thing, I was briefly talking about that, we are also able to boot the UD Pocket from a Mac. So even if you have an x86-based Mac on hand, whether it's a MacBook Pro, whether it's a MacBook Air, you can simply boot the IGEL OS from that device and have a secured and managed OS to access the enterprise infrastructure.
Very cool, very cool. Yes, when I was I went down to visit you guys a few weeks ago, and I left with a magical little UD Pocket running on my Mac, and it's just the most beautiful thing because I'm a BYOD customer or user here at IGEL, and I love my Mac. I don't want to put the IGEL image. I want my own computer, right? And
exactly.
now I just and it's the coolest thing to demo for people. But I also think this little device is, how great would it be to, you start up a new employee at a company, they give you a cell phone, they give you a laptop, they give you a UD Pocket. And then wherever you are, if you don't have your Mac with you, maybe you're going at your mother-in-law's or your in-law's house, you just slap that thing in, off you go.
Exactly.
It's just super easy. Throw it on your keychain. You're never away from your work. The ability to
in the end, you can call that your personal thin client that you can always carry around with you.
Yeah.
So the only thing that you would need is any type of device that you can really fire up your thin client.
Yep. You got it. Just a beautiful, beautiful device. So guys out there listening, if you're going to be at Synergy, definitely stop by the booth and check these things out. Talk to your local partner, find an IGEL guy, go on to the website, igel.com, and get one of these things. You'll absolutely love it. It's truly magical. I remember way back in the day, there was a small little company called Thinstall that virtualized the ICA client and put it in an exe file. That company turned it into ThinApp, which that VMware owns, and their app for its solution. This is even better. because it's not just the ICA client; it's a full-blown thin client, managed thin client, operating really a Linux operating system. So yeah, I'll get all excited and go down a rat hole. This thing's beautiful, so definitely check it out. But let's move on. One of the really one of the other core pieces of this stack that really enables the any story that we've all been talking about since my earliest days, right? Any of our earliest days, is something we call the IGEL Cloud Gateway. To me, it reminds me of Citrix Secure Gateway, which was a phenomenal, simple SSL sort of VPN gateway that allowed us to configure the client to the server over one port, 443. So what is the IGEL Cloud Gateway? What are we trying to do? What are the requirements? Can you describe this thing? How beautiful is it?
Sure. So yeah, thank you for that introduction. I think there's a lot of things that both solutions have kind of in common. So our idea is also to really have the IGEL management capabilities. So the no-touch deployment capabilities where you can just register a device without fiddling around with IP addresses, with URLs and things like that. Brought to the wild world of internet. So the UMS is made basically to really manage devices in company networks, right? So from the security standpoint, from the protocols point of view, where you have to make sure that there's connectivity to the management piece and all of these things. So at that time, when we saw that there's more and more requirements to manage devices located out there in the wild, the so-called internet, we decided that we also would like to have let's call it an add-on to the UMS, where you can simply manage those devices wherever they are located, this any stuff. And the IGEL Cloud Gateway is basically a small component that you can add to the UMS. It's not required that it is on the same network as the UMS is located. So the IGEL Cloud Gateway is able to run wherever you want to have it in terms of being accessible to any outside device or any internet connected device. So it could be in your on-prem environment, in your data center, that you put it in your demilitarized zone, for instance. It's able to run in cloud environments, so Azure or Amazon or any other of those vendors out there. And the stack that we have created is able to cope with all of these different setups, because everything that we do in terms of communicating between the cloud gateway and the UMS is highly encrypted. So the UMS is the only one that is able to communicate with that cloud gateway. We're using a certificate-based authentication mechanism to enable the communication path between the cloud gateway and the UMS. And if you will, in the end, the cloud gateway is nothing else than a kind of a gateway proxy type of solution that enables clients located on the internet to communicate with the UMS in a secured and authorized way. So what we have done in the cloud gateway, we have added an additional, completely new protocol that is using WebSocket technology. It's all encrypted on SSL TLS basis. We are using certificates to authorize and authenticate devices there. The protocol is made to handle laggy and unreliable network connections. So think about you're sitting somewhere with your laptop in the outback with a very shaky LTE connection. So the last thing that you want to have is a not working management piece. And so to have full control of the devices out there in the wild, we have created that protocol that really replicates all the management capabilities that you already might know from the UMS into the cloud gateway. So for the admin staff that is working with the UMS, it's completely transparent in the way on how they are managing these devices, on whether that device is located on the company network or whether it's located somewhere out there on the internet. So no matter whether you have home workers that are connected through their local internet provider, or whether you have people on the road sitting in a Starbucks cafe or wherever there is a public Wi-Fi, it doesn't matter. It's the same experience for the admin staff all the way. So whether you deploy a new configuration, whether you want to do help desking, or whether you want to apply firmware updates or whatever, all of this is completely transparent for the admin staff.
Very cool, very cool. It's remarkable. I love it. I absolutely love it. And like I said, it sort of rounds out that beautiful story of any, right? And
Right.
it just, yeah, and with the UDP, it's just beautiful, beautiful. One of the sort of change subjects a bit. One of the things we hear a lot about today in the news related to thin clients endpoints is this Raspberry Pi. When somebody brings up Raspberry Pi, what's IGEL's philosophy on Pi? What's the reality of Raspberry Pi as an enterprise device?
Sure. So from our point of view, I think it's a nice approach to have a kind of a very basic set of features that are available for the virtualized environment to access VDI solutions or server-based computing. But to be honest, seeing reality, we see that there is not that typical VDI deployment or cloud desktop deployment. People would want to have a user experience that is similar to what they have with a FAT client. So if I want to have smart card support, I want to have my smart card attached to that thin client device and have a full-blown authentication workflow. If I want to have digital signature, for instance, on my device, I want to be able to attach a digital signature device to really use that in the way as I'm used to with a FAT client. If I want to add in any types of peripherals that are out there, I just want to attach that the same way to my endpoint device as I would do that with that traditional FAT client. And I think that's the challenge that we see right out there right now with the Raspberry Pi. It still lacks a kind of flexibility and to really address all of the needs of those customer deployments. So at the moment, I don't see that it's fully enterprise ready from my point of view. It might get there. As we have a versatile software stack, for us, it's not a big thing to really also add in that platform. But at the moment, I don't see that as an enterprise-ready product.
That's a very good point. Very good point. It's about the peripherals at the end of the day and the usability and things of that nature. Right. Very, very good point. So, Matthias, I think we've gone through everything, and we're getting almost to the top of the hour in recording. So, I have let's summarize or let's wind this thing down. I guess is the proper way. What's next for IGEL? We talked about what we have today, things of that nature. But what's coming? What's the next steps? Right.
Right. So, as I said, we want to drive our management capabilities to the point where we say we have a unified endpoint management infrastructure. And I think we have already launched a lot of things that go in that direction. So the cloud gateway is one of the core components enabling us to manage devices anywhere and anytime. We have the UMS as a tool that is able to really abstract the way on how I manage devices with our profiles and configuration capabilities. So for us, this is let's say the foundation for broadening the ecosystem of devices and endpoints that we can manage. So I think we have seen a lot of people talking about IoT. Think about how do I access IoT infrastructures? How do I manage those devices? How do I securely access data created in IoT and through the cloud. And through that, we will see that we will extend our footprint in the next years towards enabling much more secure access to IoT infrastructures on devices displaying the information that is necessary to really manage these IoT infrastructures and to really access IoT solutions in a secured and convenient way. And thinking further, the field is large enough to think about all of these different form factors that we have out there. I think one of the things that we already have shown today is the support of the of the Intel Compute Stick, which is a very new form factor. It's a small piece of hardware that looks like a USB stick, but that includes a full-blown compute unit that enables you to attach it to any HDMI-based device. And we will see much more form factors coming up in the next couple of years that do fulfill those requirements to be flexible and to be tied into very different solutions. And IGEL, with its IGEL OS, will be able to provide the capability to have an unified and standardized endpoint OS infrastructure being deployed on those very different form factors.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. And then for my last question, or second to last question, I guess, is the competition question. What makes IGEL special? Why is IGEL better than everyone else? And there's a lot of commodity thin clients, or there's even the Raspberry Pi, as we mentioned. Why IGEL? Why should someone pay attention to what IGEL's doing versus the competition?
That's a very good question. So, if you have a look out there on our competition, you see that IGEL is currently the only company that 100% focuses on really providing the best endpoint user experience and the most versatile and flexible OS on managing any types of endpoints. So I think we are getting away from talking about IGEL as a thin client vendor, more towards IGEL being a company that enables customers to manage their endpoint devices wherever they are located. We are very dedicated to work on the projects, to listen to our customers, to incorporate new solutions, and we have a lot of capabilities in our OS to really enable customers solving their requirements and solving their challenges that they face in the more and more complex getting deployments out there in the field. So with all the management capabilities and with the way that we own our endpoint OS, we are able to have a solution for a broad band of very different requirements that are out there in the field, and really focusing on being the one that is able to provide the best user experience on endpoint devices in cloud deployments as well as typical VDI deployments.
Perfect. Matthias, thank you so much. And for my last question is, if somebody wants to learn more, what do they need to do?
So that's very simple. We go to our website. We have software on hand that you can immediately download. You can test drive it. We have our 12 minutes demo. So if you're interested in getting some more detailed information on what's going on, if you get hold of a UD Pocket demo stick, it's a very easy process on how you can get hold of the user experience or the experience that you have with the UD Pocket, as well as with our OS in general. So there are many different ways to really get the IGEL experience, either by downloading our software or just getting hold of a UD Pocket. If you come by to our booth at Citrix Synergy in Orlando in May, we will have a UD Pocket demo stick on hand for you. So it's very easy for you to test drive our management piece, the UMS, together with our software stack, no matter whether it's the UDC software or the UD Pocket.
You bet. Matthias, thank you so much. And guys, listen, and we can't forget, go to the IGEL website and you can sign up to win a Tesla. So
Yeah, right. So that's what I forgot to talk about.
you gotta mention the Tesla. I mean, who else gives away Teslas? We don't give away, iPads. We're giving away Teslas. No, just one Tesla.
Exactly.
Tesla. We give away Tesla. Okay.
Tesla.
Matthias, thank you so much. This was an education for me. And I think the guys out there really enjoyed it. I look forward to having you on in the future and maybe diving down into some more specifics of each technology. But for now, this was absolutely great. I thank you for your time and just, thanks again.
Sure. Thank you for listening to what I was talking about. I think I hope I gave you a good overview of what we are doing and why IGEL is doing things like we do. And we will continue working, solving the issues and challenges of managing endpoint devices in a cloud-based and virtualized world. Thank you, Doug.
Hey, thank you very much, Matthias. Have a great day, and thank you again.
Thank you.
Okie dokie, that concludes another successful episode of DABCC Radio. Thank you so much, Matthias, for taking the time to do this. To get his time is very difficult. The guy is busy. And I'm really, really happy with this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you learned a lot about what we're doing over at IGEL. It's quite impressive. And the secret is that UMS and the IGEL OS. It's just phenomenal technology that allows just huge flexibility for what's coming in the future. So if you're attending Synergy, definitely head over to the IGEL booth where they're going to be huge. We have a Tesla. So come in because we're giving away a Tesla. We just don't have one. We giving away a Tesla. We have one. You don't care. Giving away, you care. So definitely head on over to the IGEL booth and come see me. I'll be around Synergy. I don't know. I'm quite busy with meetings, but I'll be around, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So, guys, thank you so much for listening. Matthias, thank you so much for being here today. And if you enjoyed the show, definitely tell a friend. That's how we grow. And head on over to www.dabcc.com for the latest IGEL, Citrix, VMware, Microsoft, Internet of Things, data center, desktop mobility, storage, security, you name it, resources. If it's in IT, we probably cover it from a slew of different vendors and industry folks alike. So definitely head on over to www.dabcc.com and head over to igel.com and learn about the amazing things we're doing over at IGEL. So with no further ado, let's call this an episode. Thanks everyone for listening to DABCC Radio.
Can you say DABCC?
DABC.
Say it again, DABCC.
DABC.
Can you say it again, DABCC?
DABC.
How about DABCC?
DABC.
DABCC.
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 DABCC.